Imagine you're on a sinking ship, right? Like you're right in the middle of a freezing ocean.
Okay, setting a cheerful scene today.
I know, but bear with me. So the water is rising super fast, and your fate is pretty much sealed. Like the ship is absolutely going down.
Right, there is no way out of this scenario.
Exactly. But instead of, looking for a lifeboat or just making peace with the moment, you are locked in this bitter, screaming argument with another passenger
Oh, wow. Over what?
over who has the more luxurious cabin.
Ah, I see. Which is just, I mean, that sounds entirely absurd.
It totally
Yeah.
does, right? But according to the philosopher we are studying today, that is exactly how you and I live our lives. Like every single day.
It really puts things into perspective right out of the gate.
It does. So welcome to the Deep Dives. Today we are tackling one of the most profound existential questions you could possibly imagine. Basically, if we were all going to die anyway, what is the point of living?
It is a massive question, and we have a really fascinating text to guide us through it.
Yet, we are pulling from this single, highly potent source. It's a philosophical essay, and the title alone is a lot. It's called, If the End is Death, Why Live?
A very direct title.
Super direct. It was written by Schweffing in February of 2025, and it was translated and edited by Kinyu. And honestly, I was just immediately fascinated by how blunt it is. Like, this text does not sugarcoat a single thing.
No, it really doesn't. It just drops you right into the deep end. And I actually think it's crucial to frame this correctly for you as you listen, because it'd be very easy to look at a title like that and, brace yourself for this morbid, pessimistic slog.
Right, like a super depressing read.
Exactly. But that is not what is happening here at all. Instead, we're really looking at a striking thought experiment.
Okay, a thought experiment. How so?
Well, the author has meticulously designed this essay to basically strip away all those comfortable societal illusions we rely on. It forces us to look at the raw reality of our existence.
By taking away the psychological buffers, the things we put up around our own mortality to feel safe.
Precisely. It removes all of that padding.
And those buffers, they are dismantled almost immediately in the text. The essay dives straight into this really intense comparison between humans and pigs.
Yeah, that part is definitely a wake-up call.
It really is. The author basically states that when a pig is born, we already know that 99% of them will ultimately meet their end by slaughter. Like, it's just a given.
Right. It is an unavoidable statistical reality for them.
Exactly. And then the text pivots straight to us. It points out that regardless of how noble or lowly a person's birth might be, 100% of humans share the exact same ultimate fate. We all die.
No exceptions at all.
No exceptions, no escape clauses. We all have a 100% mortality rate.
And what's interesting there is how the author uses that undeniable biological reality to just totally attack the foundation of human hierarchy.
Right. All our status symbols.
Yeah, because if you think about it on a psychological level, we spend massive amounts of energy trying to differentiate ourselves from each other. But the text argues that a fat pig has absolutely no reason to mock a thin pig.
Because their fate at the slaughterhouse is identical anyway.
Exactly. The biological end completely negates those temporary physical differences. And so, by extension, the wealthy and powerful have no real grounds to ridicule the poor. The final destination is exactly the same for both.
Which brings us right back to that sinking ship imagery from earlier. The water is rising at the exact same rate for, the billionaire up at the penthouse suite and the person working down in the boiler room.
It doesn't care who you are.
Right. But we are so obsessed with our relative status, our specific place in the hierarchy, that we just completely ignore the absolute reality of our shared environment.
We get distracted by the cabins.
Yes. So a wealthy person mocking a poor person is, in the author's words, literally exactly like a fat pig mocking a thin pig.
And we really need to understand why the author chooses such abrasive, almost offensive imagery here. Like, comparing us to pigs isn't an accident.
It's meant to sting a little.
It is a surgical dismantling of the human ego. Because our ego evolved, in part, to keep us alive, right? To make us feel special and somehow separate from the natural order.
So we build these elaborate social hierarchies to protect ourselves.
Exactly. We accumulate wealth, we chase promotions, we buy luxury goods, and we do all of this specifically to build a psychological shield against our own vulnerability.
Like we're trying to trick ourselves into believing that if we are just important enough, The rules of nature won't apply to us.
Right, but death is the great equalizer. It reduces all of that complex social ladder climbing to the equivalent of livestock sorting out a pecking order in a pen.
Wow. I mean, it really makes you look at every billboard for a luxury car or, every exhausting fight for a corner office in a completely different
It
light.
definitely changes the framing.
If you're just a pig trying to get fatter before the slaughterhouse, the effort seems incredibly hollow.
Hollow and honestly, ultimately exhausting.
Yeah, so much wasted energy.
Because if all of that status is just an illusion, and if we are all irrevocably heading toward the exact same absolute end, regardless of what we achieve, we have to ask a really fundamental question.
Right. Did we even sign up for this journey in the first place?
Exactly. If the destination is fixed, what is the nature of the ride we're on?
And the essay's answer to that is just a resounding no. We did not sign up for this. The text explores what the author calls the helplessness of our existence.
Because we have zero say in whether we are born or not.
Zero. We
Right.
just arrive here.
Yes.
And to illustrate what happens after we arrive, the author introduces another striking comparison, which is the wriggling insect.
Right. And if you look closely at nature, most living beings follow a trajectory that's driven entirely by biological imperative.
Just pure survival instinct.
Exactly. You take the smallest insect, and from the exact moment it is born, it just wriggles tirelessly. I mean, it searches for food, it avoids predators, it mates, it struggles constantly just to survive.
It never really stops.
No, the drive is relentless. It completely consumes its existence.
And the author looks at that wriggling insect and then looks at us and basically concludes that as soon as humans grow up, we begin this lifetime of ceaseless toil that is nearly indistinguishable from the insect.
It's a humbling comparison.
Very humbling. But okay, I do have to push back a little here on behalf of anyone listening, because an insect just eats leaves and tries not to get stepped on, right?
True.
But humans, we cure diseases. We write these sweeping symphonies. We build massive skyscrapers. Isn't it a bit reductive to say our human busyness is the exact same thing as a bug crawling on a leaf?
I get that. It feels reductive because we're deeply attached to the beauty of our complexity. We like our skyscraper.
We really do.
But let's drill down into the underlying mechanism the author is actually pointing out here. If we strip away the modern aesthetic and look at this purely through the lens of survival, the biological drive is totally identical.
So the motivation is the same, even if the actions look different.
Exactly. A person working an 80-hour week to secure their financial future or paying off a 30-year mortgage for shelter, they are engaging in a frantic struggle to secure resources and ward off vulnerability.
Okay, I see what you mean.
We are using incredibly complex tools like stock markets, agriculture, architecture, but the underlying motivation is the exact same wriggling. We are simply executing the biological imperative to survive, just with a higher degree of sophistication.
Wow. So the complexity of our lives is essentially a disguise. We wear it to hide the fact that we are just foraging and building nests like everything else in the animal kingdom.
That is the core of it, yeah.
Mm.
And this realization brings us to what the text beautifully and honestly painfully terms the helplessness and tragedy of human existence.
The tragedy part really stands out.
Right, because the tragedy isn't just that we have to work hard or that we have to forage. The cruel irony of being human is our awareness.
Because an insect doesn't know it's going to die.
Presumably, an insect does not sit around contemplating its own mortality while it looks for a leaf. But humans possess this high-level intellectual awareness. We know that death awaits us.
We are entirely conscious of the fact that the finish line is literally a cliff.
Exactly. We have the brains of philosophers, but the stomachs of animals.
That's such a good way to put it.
So we are caught in this massive cognitive dissonance. Despite knowing how it all ends and despite knowing the ultimate futility of all this physical accumulation, we are still biologically bound to labor, to struggle, and to strive anyway.
We can't turn the instinct off.
No, we are trapped between our philosophical awareness of death and our biological imperative to survive.
Which is a very heavy friction to carry around every day. I mean, if life is just this involuntary, tragic struggle that always ends in the exact same way, and we are forced to participate in it while knowing how it ends, we desperately need an escape route.
We definitely need a way to break out of that cycle.
Right. And thankfully, the author provides one. This is where the essay pivots from diagnosing the human condition to offering a radical cure for it.
This is where it gets really hopeful.
It does. Having established this bleak reality of the physical struggle, the author poses two pivotal questions about how to actually find joy within this framework.
And the first question is highly practical.
Yeah, it asks, if life is merely this brief span between birth and death, how can we actually live happily, joyfully, freely, and blissfully while avoiding worry, pain, sorrow, and fear?
It's basically asking for a survival guide for the mind.
Exactly. But then the second question, this one shifts the entire foundation of the discussion. The author asks, what if death is only the end of the physical body and the soul continues to exist?
And that second question is the hinge upon which the entire philosophy of this essay turns. It fundamentally changes the scale of what we were even talking about here.
Completely. It's kind of like, okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Imagine you're at the movie theater.
Okay, I'm at the theater.
And you are watching this intense, gritty indie film, right? The main character is struggling through all these mundane, exhausting tasks, and you are just waiting for the resolution.
Waiting for the payoff.
Right. But right at the climax, the camera pulls way back, and you realize you aren't watching a short standalone movie at all.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you are just watching the opening 10 minutes of a massive, epic, multi-part franchise. The essay argues that if the soul continues, then life is not just the period between birth and death. It is, and I quote, a short interlude in the grand journey of existence.
A short interlude. That change in perspective is a radical redefinition of value, because the author isn't just offering, a comforting bedtime story about an afterlife to make your daily toil feel better.
Right, it's not just a coping mechanism.
Exactly. They are demanding that we reevaluate where we actually spend our energy. If you accept the premise that life is merely a short interlude, you can think of it like an existential transit lounge.
Like an airport terminal.
Yes. When you are in an airport waiting for a flight, the physical space you are in is temporary. You know you're moving on to a final destination.
Right, and because you know you are moving on, you don't start carrying immense anxiety about, like, the color of the carpet in the terminal.
Or trying to hoard all the waiting room chairs.
Exactly. You wouldn't fight someone over a plastic chair you're going to leave in an hour. You understand the nature of the space you are in.
Precisely. When we misidentify the physical world as our ultimate reality, we panic. We experience that biological panic of the wriggling insect just trying to secure everything we can.
But if it's temporary, the panic is pointless.
Right. If the physical body is temporary and the journey of existence continues, then prioritizing material accumulation isn't just silly, it is a catastrophic misallocation of your energy.
It completely invalidates the panic.
It really does. Accepting this interlude concept creates a massive fork in the road for humanity. The author argues that this realization divides all of us into two very distinct categories based entirely on how we choose to live our lives in response to this information.
Yeah, the text details these two types of people, these two humanities, and it pulls absolutely no punches here.
No, it is very blunt.
So type 1 consists of people who are outwardly human, but fundamentally, according to the author, they are just variants of pigs and insects.
Which goes back to the earlier metaphors.
Exactly. They live their entire lives solely to accumulate wealth, material possessions, power, and status. The essay really quotes this directly, saying those obsessed with becoming superior to others are merely pigs striving to become fatter pigs.
That is such a devastating critique of modern ambition, because it points out that our ambition is often just dressed up animal instinct.
We think we're being sophisticated, but we aren't.
Not at all. If your only goal is material dominance, you haven't transcended the animal kingdom. You have just built a more stressful, more complicated pen for yourself.
You're just trapped in the illusion that being the fattest pig somehow saves you from the slaughterhouse?
You are hoarding chairs in the transit lounge.
Yes. Which brings us to type 2. So these are the people who look outwardly the exact same as type 1. They go to work, they eat, they participate in society. But their internal operating system is completely different.
They've realized they're in the transit lounge.
Exactly. These are the people who actively seek happiness, joy, freedom, and bliss. They are focused on ensuring that after their physical body perishes, their soul journeys to a better place.
So they have a totally different focus.
Yeah, and the author describes these people not as insects or pigs, but as the seeds of celestial beings, Buddhas, and angels.
Seeds. That's such a vital word there, because this is where the synthesis of the author's argument fully crystallizes. The essay is contrasting biological survival with spiritual evolution.
Right. Type 1 versus type 2.
Yeah. Type 1 people are stuck in a loop of biological survival, hoarding resources they fundamentally cannot take with them. But type 2 people recognize the physical life as a temporary incubation period.
They know they are seeds.
Exactly. They treat their current existence as the soil in which their spiritual self, the seed, is planted. So their goal isn't to own the soil.
Or to accumulate the most dirt,
Right. Their goal is to absorb the nutrients they need to grow out of it and move on to the next phase, the grand journey.
which is such a beautiful concept.
Yeah.
But I imagine the real-world friction of living as a Type 2 person is super intense because, I mean, we live in a society entirely built by and for Type 1 people.
We are surrounded by fat pigs, basically.
Yeah, every advertisement, every corporate structure, every single social metric of success is designed to measure how fat of a pig you have become.
It takes an incredible amount of psychological resilience to maintain the perspective of the seed in a world of pigs. Because the friction comes from the daily choices.
Right, the little things that happen every day.
Yeah. When someone cuts you off in traffic or, when a colleague takes credit for your work, the biological instinct, that insect instinct, is to fight back, to secure your status, to wriggle aggressively.
To defend your dirt.
Exactly. So choosing joy, choosing to let go of that minor slight because it simply does not matter in the grand journey of the soul, that requires you to actively override millions of years of evolutionary programming.
So it's not just sitting around meditating.
No, it is not a passive state of peace. It is an active daily rebellion against your own biology.
Wow. So we really have to turn this inward. For you listening to this right now, it really forces an intense self-audit.
It really does.
Like when you are checking your bank account for the 5th time today,
Yeah.
or when you are agonizing over a missed promotion or lying awake at night worrying about your status among your peers, you have to ask yourself, are you nurturing your celestial seed, or are you just trying to be a fatter pig?
It's a tough mirror to look into.
It is. Are you preparing for the grand journey, or are you just fighting over the biggest cabin on a sinking ship?
And that self-audit is exactly what the author intends for the reader to experience, because the essay builds to a very clear ultimate conclusion. It functions almost as a set of direct instructions for how to navigate that daily friction we were talking about.
So what are the instructions?
Well, the author warns us, do not let the illusion of death blind your spiritual vision, and the phrasing there is critical, the illusion of death.
Right, because if death is just a transition to the next stage of the franchise, treating it as absolute finality is the ultimate trap.
It's the illusion that tricks you into living like an insect.
Totally.
Think about the mechanism there. If you believe death is the absolute end, fear dictates your every single move. You hoard, you hide, you fight.
Because you think you have to hold on to everything.
Exactly. But if you recognize death as a transition, the fear just evaporates. So the active instructions in the text are very clear. You must direct your life toward happiness, joy, freedom, and bliss.
Cultivate the seed.
Right. You must let your existence evolve toward a more beautiful space. And crucially, the author says we should not shrink back because of the risks along the way.
Don't let fear win.
Yeah. We must not let the certainty of physical death fill us with sorrow or fear. It is a literal call to live boldly, to take risks for joy, because the physical stakes simply aren't as high as our animal instincts trick us into believing.
I love that. We started this deep dive with such a stark, almost brutal reality check. We looked at our shared fate with livestock and the tragic, ceaseless wriggling of insects.
It was pretty dark at first.
It was. But by understanding the mechanism behind our biological panic, we reach this incredibly uplifting liberation. This physical life, with all of its toil and trouble, is merely a stepping stone.
It's just a short interlude for the soul's evolution.
Exactly. By accepting the end of the body, we free the mind to actually experience joy without that constant heavy burden of existential dread.
It flips the script entirely. Mortality goes from being the source of our deepest terror to the very mechanism of our freedom.
Because we don't have to win the game of physical accumulation anymore.
No, because the game itself is temporary.
That is such an incredible paradigm shift to carry with you. But before we wrap up today, I want to leave you with one final thought to explore on your own. It builds on everything we've discussed today, but it looks at the grand journey from a slightly different angle.
Yeah, we talked a lot about how we are, as the author beautifully describes, seeds of celestial beings, right? And we're meant to use this life as soil to evolve into a more beautiful space.
Right.
But what happens to a seed that actively resists growing?
Oh, interesting.
If someone makes the conscious choice to remain a fat pig out of sheer comfort, if they completely ignore their spiritual potential and just cling to material wealth, what is their fate in the grand journey?
That's a great question.
Does their seed simply rot in the dirt, forever trapped by their own refusal to evolve? Or does the universe operate with a different kind of justice?
Meaning what?
Does the grand journey of existence force that seed to be planted over and over again, repeating the ceaseless tragic toil of the insect, lifetime after lifetime, until they finally realize they are supposed to sprout?
Wow. That is a thought that will definitely sit with you the next time you find yourself stressing over something completely trivial. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Carry this new perspective into your day, actively choose to nurture your seed, and we will catch you next time.